Hello, everyone. We are here with the Ulteig team. I'm actually so excited to be here with you guys. I've been looking forward to this. And I sort of just want to start with having everyone sort of go around in our little circle here and sort of just introducing yourself. Just your name, anything else you want to share about you, a fun fact.
My name is Melissa Wastel, and my role at Ultag is Design Technology Manager. What that means and what myself and my team do is we are experts in the software, usually 3D software, that's used to complete engineering designs. I specifically focus on substation design. So what I do is I build content in 3D, the content that it takes engineers and drafters to complete engineering projects. I also train engineers and drafters in software. And my number one goal or my number one aspect of my job is to help engineers get projects done as efficiently and as accurately as possible in 3D software.
All right. Annie, do you want to go next?
Sure. I am not in the technical side of Ulteig. I'm in the soft people skills. So my role is diversity, equity, and inclusion manager, program manager at Ulteig. So I oversee our diversity, equity, inclusion education programs, our inclusive leadership development, our community partnerships like with Humanity Rising, and a whole host of other things that are focused on building a more inclusive, diverse, and equitable workforce that I'll take.
And I'll go. I'm Kyle Smith, he, him. My role is Associate Director of Business Development in Emerging Markets. And what that means is a lot of words, essentially where Ulteig helps its customers and clients across the markets we serve or the industries we serve, transportation, roads and bridges, water treatment, power, and renewables. And my role is to connect the dots and figure out where the world is going next to help Ulteq get there, as we expand clients that we have today and find the clients that we will work with tomorrow, work with Melissa and her efforts around the digitalization and utilization of software as an engineering firm, and continuously trying to position ourselves for what's next and the people that are coming next to our industry as well.
For those of you who do not know, my name is Carys Mullins, she, they. I am the program director at Humanity Rising of the LGBTQ programming. I founded the Community Advocates for LGBTQ Mental Health, a really long name, and I just call it CALM. It's comprised of like a blog and a podcast that I do and I write, and the entire purpose of it is to just advocate for mental health equality for LGBTQ people. Specifically at Humanity Rising, I do marketing, and I'm basically a one-man marketing team. So that's really fun, and it takes up a lot of my time, and I do actually love it. So that's sort of me in a nutshell. And we're sort of talking about Ulteq and the different roles you have. But what is Ulteq really? Is it just an engineering firm? Do you just hire engineers? What is this sort of big thing that is Ulteq?
I'm going to start there and then toss it over to my colleagues because I think I'm the most novice employee of this group at Ulteig, meaning I've been there for just over a year. And so I'm still learning who Ulteig is and what we do, especially since I don't come from an engineering background. I come from the nonprofit sector, in fact, the nonprofit arts sector. So going into a corporate engineering setting at first was really intimidating to me. And it has been the least intimidating experience on the ground that I've had, because it's not only extremely welcoming, but it's not just engineers, right? It is, and Melissa and Kyle will talk about this because of how much opportunity there is, but there are all kinds of roles that play into what we call our lifeline sectors. So we do transportation, water, power, and renewables. And that means we're building the infrastructure of the future. Our whole purpose is to create and solve for a sustainable future. And that is not just a tagline, like we're really trying to solve the problems of the future and to make a more sustainable world. And that takes a lot of different minds and a lot of different skills. And so, yeah, it takes technical engineering skills and a whole network of support and systems and clients and partnerships to envision that and make that happen for the future. So I'll let these two who have more hands with our clients and our technical skills talk a little bit about what that means.
Yeah, so that was really well said, Annie, to talk about, we provide engineering services. That's what we're known for. However, we have so many more opportunities: marketing, sales. We have in-house lawyers, project management team. We have people that work in the field, and we have information technology, and we also have software development. I really think that the world as a whole is going through a technology revolution right now. And in order to stay competitive and provide the best service to our clients, we need to stay up to date with the latest and greatest software tools. Ulteig is really at the forefront of technology and innovation. We have departments and people who specialize in finding the latest and the greatest tools and deploying them within the company and on our projects. Technology is really the backbone of our company too. We all are in this hybrid environment where a lot of us are working from home and have to get on an airplane in order to go into an office. So we're using technology every day, and we have to have it, and it has to function in order for us to do our jobs. So it's really fun to work at a company that has so many opportunities other than just engineering, but also that prioritizes technology and innovation.
Melissa, what's the coolest piece of technology innovation that you work with? Like, I've heard that we have like VR headsets and do different things. What's the coolest thing happening?
Well, I'm going to be very biased in my answer, and that's 3D design. And that's what I'm really heavily involved in. And I think that is the coolest thing we're doing, because we're not only building the future of the world with renewable energy in our lifeline sectors, but we're doing it in 3D. So we're able to see what our substations look like and see what our bridges.
Substation.
So a substation is, there's a power generating station, so a power plant that may be off in the middle of nowhere. And then we need to get power a long distance away to homes and businesses. So the power is generated from a power plant at a certain voltage, and then a substation is going to be an intermediate kind of mini power plant that transforms the energy into usable energy. So you've probably seen them around town and not really know what they are.
High voltage, keep out.
Yes. So now when you see those, you'll see like, oh, that's a substation. That's transforming the energy from a high voltage or to a usable voltage that we can turn on our lights, or so we can have electricity in our homes and our businesses.
Ulteq is ultimately, we're an engineering firm, but as Andy and Melissa mentioned, a lot of people have a lot of different roles who are not engineers, including myself. I have a construction background. In our projects, our products and our solutions, our services that we produce really are everything that people can't see. So when you're driving down the road or you're turning your lights on, Ulteq is the engineer behind the scenes, running the math calculations, making sure that the physical projects don't fail. And as a professional engineer, people put a stamp to that, and they have a license that upholds their professional ability to make sure things don't fall down. So like many engineering firms, we are the men and women, the people behind the scenes, making sure things work, whether that's water being treated so you can drink it out of your faucet, or water being reclaimed through the sewer system, or if it's renewable energy, Ulteq designs the windmill that you see driving down the highway, and the electricity that's generated from when those windmills spin. The electrons get captured and sent out to a substation, then to Melissa's point, get put up onto the transmission grid for consumption. Or our power group also designs the transmission lines. I remember when I was a kid, we used to call them telephone lines, but there's very few telephone communication actually goes through them. If they're power lines or transmission lines, and that's what's moving the electrons from point A to point B. And then our transportation group is responsible for designing and engineering the roads and the bridges and the cloverleafs and the guardrails that you see along the highways and byways that you drive every day as a person. So that's really what Ulteq is. At the end of the day, we're people doing business with people, and hyper-focused on making sure our country's infrastructure runs every day based on what we do as a business.
That's really cool. You all like explained it from different perspectives, but I still think that, that it was captured really well. And what I can sort of summarize, I mean, I have no engineering background. I have I actually did take AP chemistry. That's about the extent. And my funny story with AP chemistry is I was okay for some of the questions. And then when it got to the open response, I took my pencil and in the open response box wrote, "I don't know, chief," and then turned in my paper. So definitely not that technical mind, more of a creative sort of marketing shapes and colors person. But what I was able to get out of that is basically we wouldn't really have anything if not for Ulteq and companies like Ulteq. We would be living in the 1600s and have horse and buggy and candles, and that would be no fun for anybody. So, I mean, the work that you're all doing is so important, and you all seem very passionate about it, which sort of leads me to wonder, how did you become so passionate about it? What brought you to this career?
So my background, I actually have an interesting background how I got here. I started my career in interior design and architecture. And when 3D design became really popular, I got really great at the software that we used and really became passionate on the software, more so than interior design and architecture. So when I came across the opportunity at Ulteig and looked into the unique work that we do and the company values, I was really intrigued by the position. So I have a story. My aunt and uncle actually do hazardous waste demolition. And so they focus on demolishing or decommissioning coal power plants. So it's really interesting that they're working on removing the old, and I'm coming in behind them and working on the new capabilities for the world with renewable energy. So I love working for Ulteig and the people I work with, and I love the work that we do.
If you would have asked me 5 years ago if I would be at a engineering firm, who our founding hub office in Fargo, North Dakota. We have offices all over the country and in Canada now, and we're expanding. But if you would have asked me that if I were to end up at this place, I would have been like, I don't even know what you're talking about. What do you mean an engineering firm in North Dakota? And let me tell you that I come from a place of passion for people and for, on my artistic and creative side, storytelling. And just like what Melissa said, this company's values that are really rooted in inclusion and innovation and agility and enthusiasm, like it is a group of people who care deeply about this work and also about each other. And so I didn't have a mind with my career in nonprofit that there were companies and corporations that had like people at the center. I didn't think that was as much of a thing. So I'm passionate about the work I do outside of Ulteig, but coming here, I've become passionate about the work I do within and for Ulteig because it is such a, I think, uniquely, maybe it's not unique. I don't have a lot of corporate experience, but from the conversations I have, it is a uniquely supportive, innovative, and people-centered culture. And so that's something that that really drives me to want to support the people doing the work, not just because I think the actual mission of the company is important, which that is as well. But it's easy to come to work every day and talk to people who really care about what they're doing and are good people.
So when I was in high school and even in college, I wasn't the best student. I was really bad at taking tests and I had really bad grades. And that's the truth. That's why I did become an engineer. I didn't go into business. I went into construction management. And I started off my career out in wastewater, out in the field, boots and hard hat, managing the construction of wastewater treatment plants, and did that for a couple of years, and then worked into a role, a job called procurement, which basically means buying things. So I was buying pumps and valves and managing contracts. Contracts are what basically you put down on paper when you ask somebody or a company to do work for you. Worked in that area for about 10 years in water and then renewables. And then I got to a point when COVID hit in 2020 that I wanted to do something else. I needed something different in my career. And close friend of mine, he was working at Ulteq, and he and I had a chat, and really started to identify, who am I? What do I want to do as a person, as a professional, as a husband, as a father, to make me happy and find the balance in my life. And it doesn't have to be what I've always done. And took a risk and basically went from a career path that I've been on for over a decade and started something completely new in business development. And joined Ulteq for, to the points Melissa and Annie raised around people. And to my earlier point around what we do is really, we work with people every day and we communicate. We spend a lot of time on team calls and Zoom calls like this. But what we're doing outside of these calls are connecting people and ideas to improve our infrastructure, improve what we do, so that we can have power in our offices in our homes, and also just continue to collaborate and lean in to utilize technology, to utilize diversity, equity, and inclusion that Annie leads. In my personal view and opinion is that we're all leaning in to do better as a society, which we can all do. Doesn't matter, what your background is or what your experience is or what your viewpoints are on things in the world. I'm a firm believer that collectively we can all do better as a society. And at Ulteq, our vehicle to do that, to do better, is power projects, renewable energy, water, transportation, and technology. So that's kind of my story of how I got to Ulteq and why I work at Ulteq.
That's really cool. I think you all sort of tied back together in a sense. I did that because that's how you're oriented on my screen in this little L. But I think you all tied nicely together, really finding what you wanted to do, maybe ending up in a path that you didn't necessarily think about. You all had interesting journeys and to get to the specific career path. And I know we talked about it a little bit, a little sprinkle here and there in your answers. But there's a lot of opportunities and there's a lot of different places and ways that you could go in this industry. And I know that Annie, I think, went into depth the most with it. But what specifically about Ulteq drew you in? Well, it could have been the culture, the mission, the people. Can you identify like anything that specifically goes, oh, that's where I want to work?
Yeah, I can go first. I think for me, what drew me in, Carys, was really the diversity of what we do. We're not just a construction company building buildings or roads or wind turbines or substations. We have a very diverse suite of offerings, whether that is being the engineer. We also have folks who project manage projects out in the field. So we have people who are doing project management internally. I'm sure Melissa will expand on what we're doing in technology and innovation, but we're leading the industry in what's next. We're not looking backwards. We're learning from where the industry came from, but we're working together as a company and with our customers and our clients of where we want to go next. And for me, that diversity of projects and client types and then people was really attractive. And I think Ulteq now, we have people sitting in 49 of the 50 states. And we've certainly worked across the United States as well as Canada, and continue to expand our presence in Canada and possibly even further down the road. So what drew me to Ulteq was really that diversity of opportunity. I've worked here 2.5 years, and I've seen a lot of people who have come in through various roles and find promotions quickly, or students coming out of college as grad engineers who do a summer internship and then hire on for a really good first job, really good paying first job, with a tremendous career opportunity. And not everybody stays, right? It's, some people come in and get great experience for their resume and they go on and do something else. That's what they want to do. And that's awesome. And Ulteq really supports that. And then we also have people who boomerang back because they go try to find something else and it didn't work out, and they're always welcome back. So yeah, that's really what drew me into Ulteq, is the diversity and the opportunities.
You know, and I'll say, to tag on to that, because you're right, I won't talk long because I already said really what drew me in, but you know, there's this, and myself included, again, having not come from this background of engineering, there's this, I think, preconceived notion of a lot of folks that engineering is kind of this exclusive field. You have to think a certain way, be a certain way, maybe look a certain way, to go into this field, right? And you know, let's get real. Engineering has been a less diverse industry in our country, and that's changing. And I'm saying diversity in terms of all kinds of things around identity, right? In terms of gender, and there's more and more women entering the field, in terms of people of color, in terms of different age folks. You know, it's really expanding, and the opportunity to help create those pathways for access, and also like something like this, like letting young people out there who may not know exactly what path they're ready to take, but that there's so many paths open before them, right? And that like there are beyond your imagination or your experience, ways that you can get engaged in important work and get a really good steady paycheck, right? Like these are important things, like to do something that you love, that makes a difference, and that you get paid for. Like the more of a hand I can have in creating those kind of opportunities, that's what I want to be doing.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking about what drew me into Ulteig. I'm just like, gosh, there's so many things, and where do I start? But I've mentioned I'm really passionate about 3D design, and when looking into the company and the type of work that we do, 3D isn't a widely known thing within this industry. And I came from interior design and architecture, as I mentioned before, and we did custom homes, really nice custom homes. And, you know, that was glamorous, right? But everybody does that in 3D. And I didn't know, I've never heard of anyone doing a substation in 3D. You know, people do, but I feel we're at the forefront of technology. So the opportunity to be unique and work on a unique project and be the first person hired within the company to focus on 3D design, there's really a great opportunity here for myself and my team to really make major changes at the company and really help the company grow like we need to, right? Because renewable energy and infrastructure is just, you know, the demand is so high right now for this type of projects. And the other thing that drew me in was the focus on personal development. Ulteq really wants you to succeed and really says, okay, what do you want to do? How can I help you get there? And versus just going to work and grinding and getting your job done. No, Ulteq really is like, we want you to be the best you can be and who you want to be, and we'll help you get there.
Those are great things to look for. Personal development is a big thing. And what you said really resonated with me. The work that I do specifically, I talk to my friends about it, or my family, or even people who also work in the same company but do different things. People, you know, they might look at engineering and think like, oh, you go in and you do math and then you leave. And that's not at all, you know, what it is. And it, you know, I feel like that's a common theme in a lot of industries, is especially for marketing. It's like, oh, so you just write things on social media all day. It's like, no, actually, funny thing, a big part of my job is math and data and looking at graphs, and it's a lot, but you do it. So I think having that awareness, and especially, you know, having conversations like the one we're having is great, because people can realize that there's so much opportunity, which is something that Kyle mentioned, you know, that diversity of opportunity, to be able to do a bunch of different things. You know, you're not boxed into a role. And especially with engineering, I mean, it's even perpetuated in the media that engineering is a very exclusive group for a very exclusive group of people. So it's definitely good to have these conversations, and great things you all pointed out. And what's also showing to me is your answers are sort of coming from a place of your roles. And I think that's really great. So there's that you're sort of really in tune with that. Another thing I've been noticing is we're talking a lot about, this role helps the lights come on and helps us get our roads. That's a lot of present. Looking into the future, how do you think your role specifically, or really any role at Ulteq, is going to be or look like in the future?
What's interesting is when I was going to school, the role I have now didn't exist. And in architecture firms, engineering firms, or construction companies, the role I'm in didn't have it. It's a new thing. And so what's my role look like in the future? I don't know. That's really tough because even 5 years ago, probably engineering companies didn't have my role. So it's so moving at a rapid pace.
That is a really good question. What does my role in business development look like in the future? And all of our roles on this call, including yours, right? I think I look at the future as we have one constant, that's people. We'll always have people, I think. And technology will continue to evolve and change and create new opportunities, to Melissa's point, but we'll always have people, and people will have problems to solve, issues to tackle, and people are required to do that. How we get there will continue to change. I'm sitting on an iPad calling in, we're all in 4 different states right now. So technology will continue to evolve, but that also creates opportunity and access to do more. And I'm a firm believer that utilizing technology, innovation, and change to enable people to provide access and awareness to do more. I'm sure growing up in this era through school, you're able to learn really whatever you want at the tips of your fingers in Google. I didn't have that growing up. And that simple access and awareness to an idea and go search it and educate yourself is a complete change in not only our industry, but in our world. And I find it really encouraging seeing what students and kids and students are coming up through high school and college programs now with the ideas and the solutions that they're bringing forth. And a lot of my role often is looking at what are those software ideas and solutions out there that often young kids or young students are coming up and putting forth of how businesses can use them. And there's many entrepreneurs out there across the software landscape who are helping accelerate the engineering world. And there's lots of really good ideas. And if you have a really good idea, not sure where to go next, we could help. Ulteq can help. There's even if we're not going to be the end of your road, which likely we won't be, but we can create access and awareness to advance your idea to help you learn more. And I think what does the role look like in the future for me? It's continuing to just connect people and ideas to advance what we do as a society.
The ultimate work of diversity, equity, and inclusion work is to work ourselves out of a job, right? Our goal is to get to a place where we don't need this work because everything is equitable and accessible and inclusive. That's going to be a while from now. So the things in the meantime to get from point A to point B and what that looks like in my work, which, as Kyle said, there's always people. Now, where the technology fits into that and where the people fit into that may shift, but we, will continue to build relationships, build pathways and access. But I'm really excited about the community work, and creating more ties with the communities that we're in. We have really cool departments that I'm just getting to know. Like, we have a whole what's called a right-of-way department. And that right-of-way department works within our communities to make sure that, we can, they sometimes go door to door or home to home in an area where we're like maybe building out a road or a bridge. And then they work with our environmental team to make sure that we're like, are we being disruptive to tribal land? There's really cool ways that we interact with communities, and to do that with strong stewardship and responsibility, we're still building that capacity and have a lot of opportunity when it comes to really creating strong reciprocal community relationships. And so I hope that my role in the future can dive into that a little bit further. It's something that I'm excited about.
That's good to point out. I mean, because that is, especially when you come across things like tribal lands or neighborhoods, there's so I always say I live in Tampa because nobody else knows where this place is, because it is not a town, it is not a city, it is not anything. It is a census designated area called Wesley Chapel, directly outside of Tampa. We have no government, and we're like there, we have no police force. It's a madhouse. And so I affectionately have started calling it Wesley Chapel the construction zone, because everywhere there is construction, and it's very loud and it's very disruptive and it's everywhere, and it causes a lot of accidents. So knowing, that they're at least, because all of our construction is done, I mean, it's like I don't even know, a town scandal. It's like always some kind of mess. The point is, it's good and that work is necessary, because you do get into situations, when you run into, are we disturbing land? Are we disturbing wildlife? You never really know. So all of those things are really important. And the reason I sort of asked that question, even though I knew it was kind of a deeper thinking question, was because students, especially right now, I mean, they just went through the pandemic. They could have never anticipated that. So a lot of students are thinking, what else could happen in the future if I go into this field? Is that really going to be a secure field? If I go into, like retail is a great example, especially, oh, I'm going to go and do all this in-person work, and then the pandemic happens and they lose their job. So people, especially students, are looking into the future as they make their biggest decisions of their lives right now, as they graduate.
So they all can go work at Thunder Mifflin.
Exactly. So, can students, I mean, I'm sure they can, but what are you guys' perspective on the question of, like, can students feel reassured that working in, sustainability or renewable energy, engineering, etc., is like a good investment for their future, and why is that?
Yeah, Karis, it's a really good question. And that's a real thing. Like, that's probably, I think back to when I was coming out of high school and even coming out of college, like, where do I want to spend my time? Like, I'm going to get a paycheck. I wanted to buy a house. I wanted to buy a car. I wanted to get married, do all these life things that you want to do. You look forward to growing up, right? And how can I best position myself to do those things? If you look at what Ulteq does, you look at what our industry does, we provide critical infrastructure for roads, for power, for water, and pursuing a career in this sector of the world, I think is a really good investment, because you don't have to be an engineer. You can be in marketing, you can be in policy, you can go into politics, you can go into legal, you can if you're a communications major, kind of at a big picture level, in the solar industry. So solar energy that you see on homes, or which is called residential, or you see on top of like a warehouse, is called commercial industrial solar. Or if you're driving down the highway and you see a big solar array out in the field, that's utility scale solar. The solar industry itself, just by itself, employs about 250,000 people a year in the United States. And with recent laws that were passed in Washington, D.C. and by the US government, it's projected that by 2030, we will need over 1 million jobs to support the demand in the energy transition. And those aren't just installing jobs, those are manufacturing jobs. Those are entrepreneurs who are going to develop new technologies and new products and new hardware and software. And so what this industry offers, again, is just so many on-ramps and access. You're not tied to being a software engineer at a big tech company subject to being laid off. You can do big tech company software-like work at a very stable and mature, and we haven't talked about this, but Ulteq's been around 80 years. A lot of our competitors have also been around decades. I could not think, I mean, it's why I'm in this industry, honestly, starting in water, wastewater, because, there's an old term, kind of recession-proof, quote unquote. Nothing's truly recession-proof, but at the end of the day, we will still need roads. We still need power. With all the technology we have out there, whether it's electric vehicles or just sitting in an office building like I am today, we need electricity. And I'd say the next 20, 30 years in this country, the United States, our infrastructure needs a tremendous overhaul. It's quite aged and dated, and we will need to be building new roads. We will need to be building new transmission lines. We will need to be building new generation sources. like wind, solar, natural gas, other generation types. So absolutely, it's a reassured. If there is any doubt, give us a call. Give me a call. I'll talk to you about it. It is a good investment and creates a lot of opportunity to do things you never thought you'd be able to do.
As a parent of an 18-year-old who, is their first year of college and figuring out the world, and came to me and said, now, what is it that engineers do? Can you explain this to me? And as we had this evolving conversation, the one thing I was able to say to them was, you're not going to be hurting for a job if you go to this field. I mean, that's one thing I can tell you, is that the work is there, the steady income, the consistency is there.
Anything that involves, I think, sort of the pillars of society, and that's something that engineering is, and renewable energy is at this point. Healthcare, especially, you're always going to have a job going into healthcare. There's just a lot of different things that will always be needed, even if the technology changes. And that's saying that the company is agile is great, because you can adapt quickly. And I feel like there's a new thing every single day at this point. I turn around and I'm like, a new feature that I get to mess with for an hour and try and figure out how it works. So, a lot of students, like I said, are looking at career and looking further after college. A lot of students, they're in college and they're studying and they're always thinking of the next step, or they're in high school and they're always thinking of going to college. It's rare that people are living in the moment. Something I thought about a lot while sitting in a classroom, for example, is how in the world am I ever going to use this in my job? Like, what is the point of me sitting in this classroom learning about this? So if you're in like a STEM program, how are you taking what you're learning in a classroom and then applying it to maybe a job at Ulteq?
Another great question. The more diverse knowledge that you have is going to make you better equipped for positions that you would come across. So I think the more diversity you have in what you're learning, whether you're interested in it or not, is going to provide value, whether you know it or not, in the end.
Yeah, Carys, it's a really, really good question. And, I'm not up on what is being taught in the moment in STEM programs, but I imagine it's a lot of science, technology, engineering, and math, as obviously the acronym stands for. But to your earlier point, you're in marketing now, but you use a lot of math. And I think what you are learning now, or what students are learning now in STEM programs, it's like training for a marathon, right? You're not going to learn it all in one day or 1 week or even in 4 years. It's keep showing up, keep asking questions, keep following what interests you. And there is a destination through your journey. And that's kind of the beautiful part, is like, you don't know where you're going to go, but keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep trying new things. I never thought I'd be sitting here having this conversation on a Monday night, honestly. And, aside from my day job, I really enjoy just connecting people and having these conversations, and looking back to where I was coming out of high school and coming out of college, really having no idea. All I was focused on was getting a job and a paycheck, and if a company was going to give me a cell phone, because that was cool back then. But looking back over the 16, 17 years now, I've met so many great people, personally and professionally, and have done a lot of really cool things. And it's really just showing up, being present, asking questions, and just being a learner. Always just, maybe you're only going to learn one thing through that class or that hour or that dinner or whatever it is, but continuing to, once you start building a foundation and asking questions and learning from your STEM programs, you'll start developing this muscle of knowledge and awareness that you can then apply to say, hey, that looks like an opportunity. I remember talking to that professor, or I remember reading that book or that article, or I remember that presentation. And there will become a point that it all kind of starts coming together. And, oh, that's what Kyle, Melissa, and Annie were talking about that Carys facilitated, when I watched that 2 years ago. I don't know when it's going to happen in your life, but it'll happen at some point, trust me. But just keep showing up, keep asking questions, and just keep learning. I think the STEM programs create such a strong foundation to do just that.
Yeah, in like the tangible, hard skill, practical sense, all the stuff that folks are doing in these STEM programs, learning to code, using a 3D printer, tinkering in a makerspace, right? Those are all things that happen in our company and in our industry on a regular basis. So there are like a complete transfer of those skills. Like those are transferable skills that students are learning that they could use in an engineering or building kind of workspace. But to everyone else's point too, those are, I'm like you, Carys, where I'm a people person. I may or may not have gone to grad school for theater. And here I am at an engineering firm doing diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? My path was super nonlinear, but I will tell you that, oh, Kyle, you want to comment on that?
Sorry, I do. I just want to say, I want to ask Annie, with your theater background, how often do you apply learnings from your theater lessons in your day job today in an engineering environment?
Every blessed day, because I am a storyteller, and storytelling is what bridges cultural difference and what gets folks from different parts of the country and different parts of the world to be able to communicate together so that they can innovate and that they can build things. So in that sense, it is kind of this linear line, but in terms of career progression, it may not be linear.
What thought just came to my mind around STEM programs? I think, a huge benefit if you are in a STEM program or were in a STEM program, just having so much exposure to a diversity of science and technology and looking through the lens of problems to solve. In my job in business development, when I'm talking to my colleagues or my management or customers, we talk a lot about what's the problem to solve. And having this understanding of core fundamental, technology, in your wheelhouse, like you can look at the world through the lens of how could I solve a problem? Is it through a computer software like Melissa's world? Is it through helping people build a vocabulary, literally, and Annie's line of work, where on the surface doesn't seem a lot very technical, but deep in the middle of it, like it is quite technical. There's a lot of organization and project management, timing and planning and communication and budget management that Annie goes through. So there's, just because it's branded as science, technology, engineering, math, that the disciplines you learn really, set people up for identifying problems and just keep that lens on of, okay, what's not working that I can go improve, falling back on the skills you learned in your schooling to solve problems.
Oh, I really enjoyed that theater thing. You can't tell because my background is blurred, but I have about 6 Hamilton posters in my room, and I know every word to the entire Hamilton soundtrack as well.
Okay, well,
as
we're
the-
going to have a sing-off soon. That's going to be the second part of this recording.
Oh,
have to
I
leave.
get enough of that on my podcast. It doesn't go a minute without a reference, unfortunately. It's pretty
I'm
bad.
game.
But I'm glad that you mentioned theater because I was actually thinking about that. I was never in drama, never took that side of theater. I was in technical production. So I sort of edited the school news. I edited and worked on like sets for the school plays, and I was a behind the scenes person. That's always sort of what I like to do. And as I got into senior year and was still doing that, I was like, I could be taking a different elective. I could be learning how to code because we had that. I could be learning I could be in AP physics if I wanted to, and I'm sitting in a technical theater level 2 class. It was level 2. And I'm glad that you mentioned the storytelling because I was thinking of that, but also just analytical thinking. A lot of the time we analyzed. So here is, what this person said in 1800s in this poem. How do we then take that emotion and turn it into a set? And this critical thinking. So I think
that's critical for both the jobs that I do and that you do in marketing and your work with youth, and what Kyle and Melissa do. They need to be on top of those critical thinking skills, and then be able to communicate and code switch those to different audiences.
Mm-hmm. So I think a great point that we can sort of sum that up is everything you learn in school at some point may help you. So don't discount anything. But especially STEM programs are very well rounded. I've noticed something as we talk a lot about, this why. Like, why should you do this? What are the benefits? How does this help? A lot of it, though, does sort of apply to once you're already in the industry. But before you can do that, I mean, obviously you go through school, but even in school, you have to get your foot in the door somehow. You have to find some way to get involved. You have to find a connection somewhere. And in terms of Ulteq, what is something students can do maybe today or tomorrow, to sort of get involved?
They can apply to our Renewal Ambassador Award program with Humanity Rising. This is one of the first times we're partnering like this and creating these opportunities for internship, because we see that this, like what Kyle said, the way that like our renewable sector is going to explode, we need to build a pipeline of passionate, dedicated, interested, curious, diverse youth to be interested in this field. And so this is one of the opportunities we're creating to help support that. We do have other opportunities though that include like being an employee at Ulteig, you get tuition reimbursement, but we also bring on graduate interns that we help support. So there's lots of different pathways, and also we're starting to provide scholarships to we're partnering with colleges and providing scholarships.
Be proactive, get involved now. Don't wait until you need to find your first job to get involved and build those relationships and your LinkedIn profile. Be proactive and get uncomfortable.
I like what you said, because that's a hurdle that I had to overcome early when I sort of started. I got my first internship with the Spark Initiative, which is a youth mentorship program. They taught social emotional learning. You've heard of it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a great program.
I was in their
office here in Chicago.
Oh, yeah. I did their in Brandon. I did their youth mentorship program. I sort of applied on a fly. I had no qualifications. I was a junior in high school, but I started talking to them and I kept following up with them, and I eventually, got that internship and did that for a year, and ended up helping them with other stuff as well because we got along. But it's just about having those conversations and especially ignoring titles. Like I used to get so worked up, like I'm going to be talking to the CEO of blah 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 today. I don't want to do that. Who am I to do that? And it's like once you ignore that and you all realize that we're just people, we're just human beings, it gets easier to make connections. And those connections take you like awesome places. I was at St. Pete Pride, which is one of the bigger Pride events locally, but also across the nation. And I was doing street interviews to get content for my social media page. And I ended up interviewing unconsciously the director of the Tampa International Gay and Lesbian Film Festival, which led to extra conversations. And now I'm producing a documentary with them that's going to be filming March 2023. So you literally never know what's going to happen in a conversation. And you just got to put that aside. And I was a senior in high school when that conversation happened. So education is important, but building relationships and not trusting an AI with your resume is the most important thing.
That's right.
But yeah, so for a little rant, but
an important one.
That's it.
And congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very excited about it. We're working sort of on an off note. We have like, I don't know if you guys know, these organizations are kind of like niche to the LGBTQ advocacy, but like PFLAG, Glisten, GLAD, a couple other organizations are sort of have their hands in this as well. So that's very exciting. But anyways, something that we did bring up is feeling uncomfortable, maybe feeling self-conscious or doubtful. And I do this in sort of every interview I give. I ask you to sort of speak directly to the people that are going to be watching this. And if you could say anything to a student who has doubts or questions about any of this that we have talked about, whether that's going into STEM or doing something for the environment or, working or getting involved with Ulteq, what was like one or two sentences that you would say to them?
It's a journey, and nobody has figured it out perfectly, and there is no perfect road. Every experience is a learning experience, and learn from it. Learn from the past, and it's kind of a cliche, but like, don't give up. And when you feel like, just for me, it's like lean in what gives you energy. We all go through a lot of things that we don't like and kind of confusing, or it's like, why did I take this course, or why am I doing this or that? Like, stop it. Go do something that does give you energy. Go find your network, go find a community, go find a friend or a family member, or somebody in a like interest social setting, and go talk to somebody. Go. There's people out there that want to help, that will help. Take that first step, however daunting or courageous it might feel. And this is way more than 2 sentences, but something I get really passionate about. It's not always going to come to you, but if you just take 1 inch, somebody will give you a mile.
I would just add one thing to what Kyle said, and that would be to lean in with curiosity and just be curious, ask questions, and see where it takes you.
I'm only going to add a couple things too. And one is, it's okay if you get it wrong, because even if you start off on the wrong foot, it's still a learning experience that you're going to gain experience that could help you and that you may not know in the future. And listen to your gut and listen to yourself. If you took a class like, oh, I loved that class, then think about that and think what you can do with that.
All right, well, that is all the questions I had. So I just wanted to, sort of thank you guys. It was a really great conversation, really great answers. And I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day, especially sort of after 6 o'clock.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us.